And we're talking currently to the director of Rocketman, Dexter Fletcher.
Hello.
And you're enjoying the second wave, aren't you, with this film? It's this sort of last couple of weeks seems to be as big as the initial premiere was and the launch.
Yeah, it seems to be the enduring thing about musicals. They're sort of films that you can, come back to again and again. And it came out in May, and it's a great sort of applause or whatever. People loved it. But yeah, it sort of stayed the distance. And now there's all this sort of talk about award ceremonies coming up and all of that kind of great stuff, which is great to be part of that.
How big is that talk? What are we talking? Are we talking Academy Awards or anything like that?
Well, they do in America because that's the only awards that they take any notice of.
Right.
Look, I mean, yeah, there's a conversation about it. I mean, the received version of it is that you come out in October if you want to be part of the awards conversation, because October's you're just before Christmas, and that's the awards all come out in February. But we came out in March, and we're still in the conversation, which is very sort of flattering and quite exciting, because it's like, okay, we've hung on for 6 months, because I would love Taron to get some sort of kind of recognition, or Giles Martin that we mentioned earlier, the music that he produced, reinterpreting all these songs in a new way is kind of what's been really
Not
fun.
bad for a little kid from Boston, is it?
Not bad. Yeah, we got some from Boston, somewhere like that. Yeah.
And so tell us about some of the things that didn't make the cut, because that's always interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of bonus stuff on the DVD.
Oh, it's all on there, is it? I love all that.
Yeah, a lot of it's on there. Yeah, because a lot of the musical numbers were too long. There's a great number, Saturday Night's Alright for a Fight, when he's a...
Love that.
Thank you. Yeah, when he sort of grows up and he goes through a fence and it's Taron, and it's long. And it's a great dance number, and the film was running long, so I've sort of cut out a chunk in the middle of it with a bit of camera trickery.
Was it your decision?
It was.
Really?
That was ultimately.
That's gotta be tough, hasn't it?
It is. That's very hard. That is really difficult. And there's other dramatic scenes as well. At the Royal Academy, there's a fantastic scene with a wonderful actress, Harriet Waters, and who I worked with when I was a kid, and she's his music teacher.
Is that Miss Dodds?
Miss Dodds, is that what we called her?
Well, that's what we went there last week to interview.
Oh, that
Elton.
was her real name. Yes. I think we called her something different.
Right.
But yes, he had this incredible relationship with his music teacher, and there was another scene where there's the first scene where he sits down and plays by ear, and she's like, oh my God, and he plays this incredible. But then there was another scene where he goes back and says, I got to go and play rock and roll. He gets offered this opportunity to go on tour, which he did with all these sort of Motown acts that were touring around the UK at that time, and he goes back and makes this very impassioned speech about, I love rock and roll, I've got to do it, and she's like, there's no future in it, what are you talking about, can you make any money at it, and sort of, and he's like, I've got to give it a go, and he's this sort of impassioned young man.
Why did you cut that? Was it a bit too twee almost?
It was a little bit twee, but also it's about length. It's kind of like, I could show that, or because if you cut it out, the film still shows that journey.
Yeah.
And so I could, you get into the debate. It's like, am I setting up what you're about to see?
Yeah.
Or rather, do I just let you see what, do I?
Yeah.
And if I took it out and you go, well, what the hell's happening now?
Yeah.
Then it leaves a big gap in the story. Then you've got to think about it. If you could take it out and you don't notice.
Yeah.
And although I love the scene because it's a brilliantly played scene, does it really, you have to ask those bigger questions.
Dexter. Well done.
Well, thank you very much.
Because that can't be easy when you've got something that. But I know what you mean. If it can be implied, it's better, isn't it? Because you don't want to be, you don't want to know what's coming up next, even in a biopic where a lot of the stories know.
Yeah.
Elton hadn't seen it for ages, so he was doing all this press with Taron. Yeah. And I remember watching him doing interviews in America, and they said, "What do you think of it?" "Oh, I haven't seen it. But then he saw it and he fell in love with it. Were you there the night he saw it?
I was, yeah. I mean, he'd been seeing bits and pieces of it, but I think he intentionally kind of kept himself away from the finished product. And the truth of it is that it became more and more of a rush job because it was opening at the Cannes Film Festival in May, and I was still working on it, and I just had this deadline that I had to meet, and everyone else was like, great. So anyway, the red carpet's at 6 o'clock, and I was still in London trying to get it finished with Giles, mixing the music and the sound, and there was all this stuff still to be done, and Elton hadn't really seen it. He'd seen bits of it. And so I QC'd it, I quality checked it on the Friday, and then by Thursday we were in Cannes on the red carpet, and no one had really seen the finished
That's
thing.
good though, isn't it? For it to be that raw.
It was good in a way, because I think it meant that I didn't have time to really overthink it. No, none of us did. It was I was like, okay, well, I don't know, I'm just put it out there now, and we'll see what happens.
Because we heard about this standing ovation that it received. I mean, how did you feel when that happened? You know, an Elton John biopic. You know, you've directed it. Elton Blimmin' John, Giles Martin, George Martin's Blimmin' son, and you're at the Cannes Film Festival, and people love it. Yeah. What did that feel like?
It's not easy to put into words. It was surreal, to be quite.
Did you have a shandy?
I had a shandy afterwards. Definitely did, because we went down on the beach, down on the Carlton, and him and Taron played. Elton and Taron played down on the where the film ends.
What was that like?
That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing.
The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.